Welcome to this special episode of Decoding Gender Insights from Thought Leaders. Population First is observing the 16 days of activism against gender based violence, a global campaign from November 25th to December 10th, with a 16-part podcast series that delves into the intersection of gender and critical social issues. Since inception in 2005, Population First Ladli initiative has focused on challenging the gendered attitudes that devalue girls and women, fuel discrimination, and perpetuate gender based violence. The male gaze in India's classical music and dance often prioritizes appearance over artistry, reducing physical expression in forms like Bharatanatyam and Kathak and classical music to visual consumption. Female performers face scrutiny that overshadows their talent, while compositions often depict women as objects of desire or symbols of devotion, reinforcing patriarchal norms. Reclaiming these traditions by focusing on artistry and reinterpreting narratives to celebrate women's autonomy is essential for fostering inclusivity and preserving cultural integrity. We have two artists, a Hindustani classical vocalist Jayanti Sundaram Nayak and Kathak exponent Dr. Piyush Raj joining us for this discussion. Astute artist and educator, Jayanti's voice is at once primal and contemporary. Her markedly individual style of Khayal Gayaki freely explores long sustained notes, balancing acrobatic melodizing even while keeping it evocative and laden with emotion with a choice of Sahitya. Dr. Piyush Raj is a doctorate in pharmacology and a renowned Kathak exponent. He is the founder director of the Culture Hub, Natnam Studio. Over to the experts.
So, Piyush and I were talking about this, and this has been the substance of many conversations, I think, between artists over time. Um, you've already stated that traditional narratives, they do perpetuate the male gaze, as in the objectification of women. May I just speak a little bit about the Hindustani music aspect, Piyush? Would that be okay?
Yeah, I guess so. You can start with that and then we can weave in the dance element.
Both, right? So, when I look at it, I think we come from um, a culture that celebrates heteronormative and cisgendered identities. And it is really, really hard for the Indian milieu to view gender as non-binary. Keeping that in mind, therefore, almost everything. So when you look at the structure of Indian classical music, right from the rag, you have male rags and female rags. They are called raginis. Whilst we don't adhere to that strictly, yet the idea that a rag will have certain characteristics that are male, for example, when you take a darbari, it's seen as a male rag, and therefore the preponderance and predominance of men who are largely singing it. When I started learning, these were some of the rags that my Guruji was a little hesitant to teach, saying that, दरबारी तो एकदम मेल राग है, पुरिया धनश्री सीख लो पहले. That was the kind of thing. So I saw that, and it did not strike me at that time, I think, personally, that I was playing into a time honored gender bias. And when I look at us as artists, and I don't think we are consciously in that space perpetuating something that has been, considered objectification of women. However, this male-female dichotomy or the male-female comparison exists even in the genres of Indian classical music. So Dhrupad, Khayal, and Tumri, seen as the three dominant genres of Indian music, Dhrupad is viewed as a male construct. I mean, the Dhrupad is considered to be male because it is associated with bravery, with discipline, with a certain rigor, with a certain manliness in terms of singing, in terms of musicality. Whereas the other forms that emerged, Khayal and Tumri, are seen. Khayal, I think, is kind of at the intersectionality between Drupad and Tumri. And Khayal is seen incorporating elements of both, and Tumri is seen largely as the female voice, or the voice of the feminine in Indian music. When you look at it, the lyrics definitely contribute to this ideation that there is, male dominance does exist, or it is a patriarchal society that we are living in. However, we don't know much about the origins of the songs that we are singing today, who composed them, when. Not much has been documented. What became documented much later, we have no idea about the authorship, or who has actually created these compositions, or bandish as it is known in Indian music. The idea has largely been that the heroine, or the naika, and the theme that permeates both Khayal and Tumri are themes of separation, longing, Shringar Ras. Whereas in Drupad, the idea is the rasa is more on bhakti and geared towards a spiritual leaning, which is considered a higher desire than the carnal leanings that could be expressed through Shringar Bhava. Piyush, what are your thoughts here?
I agree to a certain extent because even in dance also, I mean, if you see, there has been right from the days of Natya Shastra, or even those scriptures also have this variation in the dance about classification of Tandav and Lasya. The form where it is said that the Tandav Ang, which is the more Uddhat Ang, which is a more energetic Ang, has been always been performed as a male dancer, and the Lasya Ang, which has been originated by Parvati and taught to Usha, has been always a feminine dance. But having said that, all the scriptures also encompassed both of these dance forms together. It is not that there is nowhere written that it has to be only one form which can be performed by others. So it has to be a perfect mix of both, which requires the evocativeness of that particular dance form. That's why it is said. The concept of Ardhanarishwar also came from there, where the balancing of the male energies and the female energies has to be equal to give that kind of effect. I've said that when you say Drupad and Thumri and all, yes, there has been, if you see traditionally, all the all the gurus have been male dancers.
Right.
And there has been always a taboo that a male cannot dance and shouldn't dance. He is good enough to as a teacher, but shouldn't dance. Also, because I think, as Yogesh also said, that the patriarchal society promotes that the female dancer has to be on the stage, and that's where the bhavas and the emotions can be better expressed by the females in expressing in a thumri, or rather than doing the male. But this is very, very, I think, anarchy and very old thought. I don't think today's generation would agree to this. But there has been, yes, there has been a lot of effort saying that many festivals also today has more opportunities given to female dancers as compared to male dancers. So now, why is this so? Because is this because of the male gaze, or is it because that's how it has been done? So who's going to change this? There has to be some kind of element where somebody brings in a change here.
Yeah. So when you look at that, if you look at from the dance perspective, I was thinking of Mallika Sarabhai or Sonal Mansingh, who actually portrayed female roles like Sita and Draupadi, but with a lot of agency, giving them that agency, and not as victims of a male society where Sita was the wronged woman, or Draupadi was the wronged woman. Musically, however, certain practices still exist and quite strongly. Drupad, of course, now we do have a lot of female performers who have started learning Drupad. It wasn't considered suitable for a woman because the kind of. So I noticed that we also have ornamentation or alankar that you use musically. The alankars like gamak and meend are considered the male alankars, and alankars like harkat and murki are considered the female alankars, because where you spoke of the lasya or the softer aspect. Our scriptures have spoken of Shiva and Shakti together, Bhairav and Bhairavi together. That becomes a unison. Oftentimes in art, I don't think it is the intention, but I think unwittingly, when one is portrayed, because the theme of almost all our compositions, Drupad is devotional in content, but in Khayal and in Tumri, the theme is largely written from the female perspective, and it is the female who's yearning, who's waiting, who is asking forgiveness from her beloved, etc., etc., which would be all right if this understanding that we as a society don't have this, if we have this understanding that being in that position is a subservient position. A position of longing means you are lesser. A position of yearning makes you lesser. And perhaps we can't look at it, I think, the composition without looking at the context in which these were created also. At a time when, again, it was a patriarchal society, it still is a patriarchal society that we live in. But when the rules were stronger, there was this ideal woman, the Indian woman, that Bharatiya Nari jo hai, Sushil Sanskari kind of a woman. That was a woman who did not express herself or her sexuality or her desires. In that sense, when we look at Tumri, Tumri gives that freedom and space for the woman to express herself. Even if it is within certain limited confines, if it is within the confines of the kotha, that entire period when Tumri flourished in the 18th century was a time when the women, and the women who were allowed to sing Tumri were the courtesans or the tawais, because Baijis, they were women of power in their space, because they sang, they danced, they were extremely talented. They were also वो क्या बोलते हैं 64 kalas. They were supposed to know poetry, they were supposed to understand art, etc. Kings and rulers would send their children to the Baijis to learn tehzeeb. So these women had the idea of expressing what they felt, and they did not shy away from it. So when you look at the lyrics of a Tumri, for example, they very clearly, Najar lagi raja tore bangale par, when she says that, it is expressing her desire or her wait for it. Kaun gali gayo sham, when you say that, I think there's so many nuances to the gali, the word gali. So that expression was something I think women artists use that limited space to explore what they could without confronting, however, whilst that exploration happened and Tumri gave the space for the feminine voice, the idea again brought on by the social construct of a woman expressing desire in Indian culture was so foreign and such anathema that there was this intense need to sanitize it. Because during this time when female desire was being expressed, I think the association with dance was very strong. Kathak and Tumri are considered sister arts, right?
Yeah, actually, because earlier Kathak though started in the temples, as a storytelling, tradition. But over a period of time, because of the invasion and the changes in the socio-economical and the cultural milieu, it kind of shifted as an entertainment. And that's where these forms flourished. And Chumri was used as an entertainment for the Mughal Darbar, the courts and all that. But yet, there has been always a spiritual angle to it and an underlining meaning to it, Even when you say Kaun Gali Gayo Sham, it's not something that you're direct. The literal meaning is yes, you're searching for the beloved. But there is a deeper meaning that if you connect it to the Bhakti Ras, which was the original, tenet of Kathak as the Bhakti Ras or the Madhurya Ras, that you're seeking, the beloved, the Almighty. That is where you're seeking and you're searching Him. So here, I think, because it came as a kind of sung by the females as a courtesan, and it came as a being associated with Kathak and Thumri. It came as a Shringar Ras. Yes, that was a predominant Shringar Ras which came out through. Underlining, as you said, these were the women of power who used to, teach other people as to how to address the tehzeeb or the nazakat and all the, what should I say, the nuances of how to lead a good life.
Hmm.
So I think that came across as that these can be done only by women and cannot be done by, and that's the reason where the gaze came in, that, oh, she's beautiful because she does all these things. And that's the definition of beauty itself changed from, internal beauty to the what was being seen and how it has been projected. I feel that's where it came across as a change. And slowly, being a patriarchal society, of course, there has been a constant evolution there.
I don't know. See, when you said that, so we do consider that when you are singing or when you're dancing, if your intent is towards that spiritual aspect, you are automatically elevated. However, if you're singing and your singing is not, if your singing is about the mundane, if you're talking about your love for your beloved or your boyfriend, because say when you look at Tumri singing in the original days, it was meant for that man in the audience because it was
Yes.
designed to lure them or to manipulate them. So we are already beginning with the premise that spiritual content is makes it a higher thing, but in terms of art and artistry, um, we have forgotten to look at the artistry of Tumri singing, the stylistic virtue of Tumri singing, which is just as nuanced and as beautiful. And I don't know if we even should be comparing these things, because Khayal compares itself to Drupad, that we are still pure because we adhere to the rag. Tumri has been considered the other, the step-sisterly or stepmotherly treatment, because this is not a form that confines itself to the purity of the rag. There's so much flexibility in it. And yet, and only certain rags are allowed, and certain tals are allowed for that. So making its, entire space very, very limited. It was literally like, वो, महिला को घर के 4 दीवारों के अंदर ही रहना है, conforming to that patriarchal norm. In Tumri here, my question here would be, has been, and internally also, that as an artist, if I am a musician, is not my expression and my technique equally important, whether whether my theme is spiritual or whether my theme is carnal in nature, right? How would that, why is it necessary that there has to be that dash of spirituality? Because that's what brought about that entire anti-Notch Girl campaign, and this complete sanitization, where the Bai terminology was replaced with the Devi, so you'll have a Girija Devi, an Akhtari Bai, then becomes a Begum, so that thing is where I feel that the amount of technique, knowledge, understanding of music that is required, whether you are singing a Drupad, whether you're singing a Khayal, whether you're singing a Tumri, whether you're singing a bhajan, somehow we are, as a community, perhaps holding that spiritual quest as way higher. And perhaps it is because that is us as human beings evolving when we are going beyond the mundane. That in no way should lessen the art form. So an art form that
Definitely
is
not.
not
I mean,
only spiritual, वो कम
yeah,
नहीं
unless and until that content is there, that art form is there, you cannot transcend that particular level. So it's not something that that is an essential part of it. You can even sing a tumri and for entertainment purpose for the the man, as you said, in the audience for your beloved. Now, today, even in dance, also, there are so many young dancers or contemporary dancers who have, taken a very strong stand and saying that no, we are not going to, stick to the patriarchal norms of what it's supposed to be,
Hmm.
and they are finding their own space. Like, for example, Aditi Mangaldas. I mean, she is very good trained dancer, a Kathak dancer, Birju Maharaj student and Kumudini Lakhyaji student. Now, Kumudini Lakhyaji also was ahead of her times, thinking about a lot of contemporary issues, but using them and using Kathak as a medium to convey that particular messages. So
Hmm.
she was the first one who says that I am doing away with the dupatta because I don't want it's not necessary for the body because I want to show my movements and that is hampering my movements. So it's not that she gave away the dupatta or she said that because of the female body, but it was because she thought that it is something which will enhance her dance form and enhance her artistry. So
Hmm.
that is something. But today people don't understand the reason why they are understanding that okay, it is a rebellion. That okay, women should not wear dupattas while dancing. But that's not the reason. I mean, I've seen even in Bharatanatyam also that their
Hmm.
Odissi for that matter, the costume itself is so beautiful. But I don't understand why they would not wear the full costume when they are doing a pure dance and rather wear a make believe or makeshift kind of a sari and say that this is what we can dance. So it's a very layered kind of thought process from both the sides.
Yeah. I don't know if in dance, if it makes it like, because it's perhaps visual in its expression, that there are ways in which you can move away from the objectification. Because, that
Right.
objectification becoming a very visual thing, how you dress, how you walk, how you talk. So you change those norms. Uh, in music, I see that we are bound by those compositions. We have
Yeah.
had over time, we've had like a Prabhatre, we've had Ashwini Bhideji, we have had Aarti Anklikar, who have actually challenged and created a lot of different compositions. Uh, some of them talk about gods, goddesses. They have compositions around nature or around, like say, whether it's rain or whether it's depicting a season. In terms of the yearning between man woman has somehow become more between a guru and a shishya. So the yearning component gets kind of handled in that space. And yet I feel that uh, if you really want to talk about that kind of love, that kind of yearning, which is very much a part, and it is relevant to us uh, today as it was even thousands of years ago, let's say around the 4th century, when men and women had like almost equal status in the Vedic times, and the way women dressed, the how qualified they were not like not allowed to go on stage, etc., or perform. They could choose that as independent careers. Perhaps with all the different invasions of India, whether it was Persian, Mughal, colonial, those have impacted a lot of our art forms in terms of their structure, in terms of their content, but not in terms of the musicality. We find that in the southern part of India, the performing art aspect is largely devotional. Carnatic classical music is only devotional, right? Barring the padams and the
Yeah.
javalis, which are rarely performed and which are again considered to be more suited for dance. In the Hindustani musical arena, almost all the compositions, when they talk about, we do have and still have that the male is dominant, because even if you're speaking of yearning and everything, you are saying that when she says that, mm, तुम बिन मोरे विदेसी पियरवा कैसे कटे बरसात. So this, murkis in this. And also the idea is that without you, how will I spend my time? Whereas making me that person who's lamenting, but you are therefore away. So you have agency to move. You can go around, you can look for work, you can do things like that. But I am this person. Yes, I can express all this feeling because music has given me that space, but I am still the one who's waiting. I haven't gone away somewhere. We say, unless I think our themes become the male yearning for the female. Okay, we don't see that in our classical compositions at all, or even in the semi-classical compositions, because it was the voice of the woman, right?
Yeah, I guess only one or two Ashtrapadis also, if you see Priya Charucheli or someone, which is only a male yearning for and asking for forgiveness from Radha, saying that I have, had a mistake and I have gone and slept with somebody else and but I'm asking forgiveness. So very, very few such compositions also you will see there.
Yeah, actually, the Gita Govind is a wonderful example of where it's starting with Radha's own lamenting, feeling, the different aspects of the Naika that come through in that. And in Priya Charushili, actually, when Krishna says that you can dance on, I am burning like coal and dance on my head. I mean, that is the kind of space given to. So Radha comes as this most empowered female. And she is the theme of almost so many, even of Tumri, of Khayal. When Radha comes, Radha is considered the Uttama Naika simply because even though she is Parakiya, that is allowed simply because the object of her devotion is Krishna. So that is what I was coming to, that whilst we accept it, that if the object of your devotion is Krishna, is spiritual, is a god, then that thing becomes, musically, I've seen that seems to gain more acceptance. We have not had compositions so far, and I also wonder if that is the way forward. As can music and dance evolve, retaining the essence while stripping away this idea? So then, just by changing the lyrics, will it still be a Tumri? Will we be able to retain its musical form, or how much more careful thinking does that happen? Who is going to do it? Right. So women have done a lot in the space of changing because the male gaze was directed towards them. But if we want this change or evolution to happen, then is it not equally the male? Even the question that how can women subvert these things would mean, like, why is it the job of the woman only to subvert? The construct was a patriarchal thing. So should not that also happen at that level? These are just questions. I mean, I look at it, when we look at somehow in this idea of the woman being the submissive and the male being the dominant, we have actually taken the beauty and artistry and stylistic elements of an art form and have made it lesser. Today we have Tumri festivals, but even now largely Tumri is sung at the end. Tumri, love and longing and this expression of desire is okay when bhakti comes into that space. So Mirabai is seen as a voice of change, but Meera, when she spoke, and she was not revered as a queen, she was called Divani. Right?
Yeah, it is. It is bhakti.
Yeah, so when bhakti has come into the space, somehow we as a community, and I still wonder whether it's because we are still that kind of a community, or whether it's like elements of Indian philosophy and our mythology that are so deeply entrenched into the construct of compositions, of the entire structure of music itself. You cannot separate them as such. And I don't know whether we have any answers. I mean, when I sing tomorrow, if I had to perform, I don't think I would consciously change the words of the song. I've not thought so far.
I think though the whole society is still viewed as a patriarchal society, But there has been the new generation has making a lot of changes, be in terms of kind of productions or kind of items which have been presented by the female dancer, or even the male dancers also stepping it up and coming into the forefront. Because even today, there's always society looks as a male dancer. Male shouldn't be dancing, that's not your profession, and you shouldn't be dancing, it is only for females. But that is changing right now, so things have been having a different outlook. And at the same time, I think personally, I have never been able to understand why is this divide between female dancer as being superior, or a someone who can perform better. Maybe it's because of the male gaze, as you said, that people want them to be seen on the stages and not see male dancers. So I think things are changing for better, and there have been many people or many dancers who are bringing this change. But yeah, as it said, it has to be from both the sides, from the male side and the female side. It cannot happen only from one side.
Yeah. I don't know. When I think of it from the Indian classical musical viewpoint, I still find that as long as we as a community will focus on the spiritual as being superior to, not as an aspiration. An aspiration is fantastic. But when we focus on that as being superior to the mundane, if we are not able to balance these two, then the artistry of a form starts getting relegated to a position of inferiority simply because of the content or the theme. So I think we need to relook at it perhaps, and rethink a lot of things. And I guess it is also bringing awareness as artists. How many of us are actually aware of this thing? Because when you have somebody like, say, a Shubha Mudgal, she's so aware, she's able to bring those aspects when she talks or when she sings. We have fewer people in our community who are as aware of what their art could also mean. That was not the intent. But somehow, if it is perpetuating certain things, what could be some of the ways in which we might mitigate this without losing the essence of the art? I think we'll have to really, really, really look very deeply with greater, larger, grander minds in that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jayanti Sundaram Nayak and Dr. Piyush Raj, for this engaging and thought-provoking discussion on the male gaze in India's classical music and dance. Viewers may now share their reactions, queries, and observations in the comments section below. Please watch all the episodes and initiate gender conversations with your family, friends, colleagues, and community members.